Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a genuinely bizarre, century-old mystery that somehow perfectly blends high society true crime with, well, terrifying cosmic lore. We're looking at a case file drawn straight from the 1917 records of Abraham Merritt. And honestly, it starts out like your standard missing person report, but it very, very quickly spirals into something completely unimaginable. All right, picture this cold open hook, because it's wild. Jim Herndon, a guy worth $10 million, just vanishes without a single trace. And you gotta remember, $10 million in 1917, that's the equivalent of hundreds of millions today. Why would a guy who literally has it all just evaporate into thin air? He goes into his hyper-secure Fifth Avenue mansion for the night, and by morning, he's just gone. But, that isn't even the weird part. The weird part is that weeks later, he suddenly reappears on his bedroom floor, slashed to ribbons by what looks like a massive 7-taloned claw. I mean, talk about a massive contrast here. On one side, you have the ultimate safety net of extreme wealth, a fully locked, totally impenetrable Fifth Avenue mansion. On the flip side, you have the physical state he returned in. We're talking shredded silk pajamas and deep, agonizing furrows ripped right across his chest. Herndon was absolutely terrified. In fact, he refused to tell the cops or even his doctors what happened. He only confided in his closest friend, a guy named Ward. Part 1. The Dragon Glass. So to actually figure out what went down with Herndon, we have to look at the physical evidence. Specifically, we need to look at this totally bizarre artifact he brought back to New York after looting the Forbidden City in Peking. Now, you gotta picture this thing, because it wasn't just your standard antique mirror. It was this oval of polished green stone, so translucent it was almost like looking up from underwater. Surrounding the frame were 12 metal dragons, but they weren't just carved. They had glowing emerald eyes, ivory fangs, and gold claws. At the base, there was a topaz disc shooting up vaporous yellow flames, and wrapped around that was a 13th scorpion-tailed red dragon. Herndon swore this relic wasn't just old. He claimed it was wrought back when the gods still walked the earth. He thought it was literally alive. And before he even got it back to New York, there was a massive red flag. We absolutely have to factor in this ominous warning delivered on his yacht by his boat steward, a man named Wu Sing. As Wu Sing delivered this warning, his whole vibe just shifted. His eyes briefly changed from black to this wise, piercing, buttercup yellow. It was as if some dark, ancient presence was actively observing Herndon through the steward. A pretty clear warning that possessing this mirror came with a terrible, terrible cost. Which brings us to part 2, the legend of Rock. Let's dig into the cosmic lore here and see exactly what Herndon unknowingly brought into his house. So, the most crucial takeaway here is that this mirror is not just a fancy antique, it is a literal gateway. The lore goes that back at the dawn of time, an entity known as Rak the Wonder Worker started creating things that were just a little too admirable. The greatest wonder worker, who was kind of the boss of the gods, felt responsible and banished Rak completely outside our world. In exile, Rak built this entirely new domain centered around a mountain called Lalum, bathed in the glow of 7 moons. And to populate his new city, Rak was granted the power to harvest wandering souls, binding them to his emerald-lit world to be reborn over and over for 10,000 lives. The dragon glass sitting right there in Herndon's bedroom was the door to Rak's terrifying garden. And one restless night, Herndon inadvertently activated this thing. It started when the metal dragons around the frame literally began to crawl. They spun faster and faster until, actually, scratch that. They didn't just spin, they turned into a blinding crimson and gold halo. The translucent green stone dissolved completely into a misty haze. Staring into it, Herndon simply reached out his hand, felt warm fingers interlock with his own, and physically stepped through the mist, leaving our reality entirely behind. Part 3, Escape from Lollylil. Because once he stepped through that gateway, things got wild. Herndon found himself standing in Rak's domain, a world with a chrysoprase green sky, giant feathery trees glowing with inner fire, ivory houses, and trapped souls wandering through the mist like tangled stars. And that's where he met the owner of the hand that pulled him through, Santu. She had this impossible beauty, cornflower blue eyes, blue-black hair, and she was adorned with golden dragons. They shared this peaceful, timeless existence in the Emerald World, falling deeply in love without even needing to speak. But of course, that peace was absolutely shattered. The master of the realm, Rak himself, with those exact same buttercup yellow eyes, found them, and he started a sadistic hunt. Herndon knew immediately he had to get Santhu out of this dimension. What followed was a visceral, terrifying chase back toward the cleft in the rocks that served as the gateway. Rock the Wonderworker was literally toying with them, like a cat with a mouse. He'd cast these rainbow mist nets to block their escape path, and then unleash his beast. Herndon described it as this monstrous, spear-like creature with scarlet and golden wings, just dive-bombing them from the green sky. They're making a dead sprint for the gateway. The mist clears for one final stretch, but Rack had finally tired of the game. The beast swoops down, its massive claw stretches out, and just before it rips Herndon apart, Santhu throws herself in front of him to shield him. The beast swerves, but it still manages to strike a glancing blow. And boom, that perfectly explains the 7 healing furrows on Herndon's chest. The impact knocked him backward, sending him falling through leagues of green space, straight back through the portal and crashing onto his New York bedroom floor. He had escaped, but Santhu was left behind. Part 4. The Endless Watch. This brings our case file to its chilling, completely unresolved present-day conclusion. Because Herndon didn't just tell his buddy Ward this crazy story to get it off his chest. He was gearing up for round 2. In the dead of night, Herndon peered back into the dragon glass. Looking through the mist, he saw that same 7-taloned claw. The beast was right there, waiting for him at the gateway. But Herndon was not about to leave Santhu trapped in Lafil for 10,000 lifetimes. So he packed a heavy-bore elephant gun, walked right up to the spinning dragons, and stepped back through the portal, vanishing for a second time. He left a will handing his entire estate over to Ward, leaving his best friend as the absolute sole guardian of the gateway on our side of the mirror. It really forces you to stop and think about Herndon's mindset. Is the allure of the absolute unknown, and maybe an otherworldly love, actually worth risking the eternal cost of your soul? I mean, think about it. Walking away from hundreds of millions of dollars, a life of total safety, just to march right into the teeth of a cosmic god? Herndon made his choice. And that leaves us with this haunting final image. Ward sits alone in the dark New York mansion, the second elephant gun resting on his lap. He just stares into the infinite, glimmering green depths of the dragon glass, watching the mists and the shadows, waiting for a friend who may never come back. It really forces you to ask yourself, if you were sitting in that chair and those dragons started spinning again, would you grab the rifle or would you step through? What would you do?